Hello and welcome back to Deathly Curious Australia. I'm your host Monique. Before we get into today's episode, I'd just like to take a moment to say thank you. We've already reached episode 6, which is honestly so bloody awesome, and I'm really grateful to everyone who's listened, followed and supported Deathly Curious Australia so far. Seeing you all come along for the ride, sharing your own experiences and connecting with my stories, it truly means more than I can put into words. In episode 4, where shadows blur, we stepped away from specific locations and started asking a bigger question, not about what these entities are, but about how we experience them. Because when we walk into certain places and feel something heavy, something unsettling, we're quick to label it dark, negative, even demonic. But what if that label says more about our interpretation than the energy itself? What if what we're feeling is the result of intense moments left behind? Fear, anger, isolation, layered over time. And when we step into that environment, we don't just observe it, we react to it. And that reaction shapes what we believe we're experiencing. So today's episode really leans into that, because sometimes the most unsettling places aren't the ones that feel mysterious. They're the ones that feel overwhelming, like something has built up there over time. And whatever remains still carries weight. Some places don't just feel sad, they feel angry. And Parramatta Gaol is one of those places, because it's not just something we've felt once, it's something we've felt every time we've gone back. From the moment you step inside, it's immediate. It feels like there's no settling in, no adjustment period. It's like walking straight into something that's already aware of you, watching, measuring. Each time it feels the same, like you're exposed, like you've stepped into something you weren't invited into. And there's something else, not just anger and not just heaviness, but something that feels almost amused, like whatever is there knows you're uncomfortable, like it's watching, waiting, expecting something to happen, taunting in a way. And the more times you go back, the more that feeling doesn't fade. It confirms itself. Old Parramatta Gaol is a place built on control, punishment and isolation. It housed some of the most violent offenders, people who were unstable, ungovernable, or simply forgotten. A place where routine replaced humanity, where people were reduced to numbers, locked away from the outside world and left with nothing but their own thoughts. And when you walk through it, you don't just hear the stories, you feel them. In the walls, in the corridors, in the silence between footsteps, like something has settled into the structure itself and never truly left. Arrowdale Asylum felt heavy but curious, like something was watching, observing. The jail is different. It kind of feels unsafe, not curious and not passive, but tense and unpredictable. Like the energy there isn't just lingering, it's unsettled. There's one particular area, being Wing 6, and every time we've been there, it's felt the same. Heavy, oppressive, almost suffocating. It's the kind of space where your awareness heightens without you trying, where you find yourself listening more closely, watching more carefully, because something in you feels like you should. We've heard what sounded like heavy boots walking towards us in there when no one was there. Slow, deliberate, closing in. I've heard a low growl behind me, close enough that it felt like it came from right over my shoulder. And that was followed by shuffling in the corner of a cell where nothing was visible. And even in moments where everything appears still, it never feels empty. It feels like something could happen at any moment. But one of the most confronting moments didn't happen inside a cell. It happened just outside one. As I walked towards Wing 4 with a group, I suddenly felt this tightness around my neck. It was out of nowhere, not subtle, and it didn't feel imagined. It was strong enough that I physically stopped. I told our guide, Chris, what I was feeling, and he confirmed that the exact spot I was standing at was outside a cell where apparently someone had been found hanging in the past. That moment stayed with me because the sensation came before the explanation, not after. And what's even stranger is that once I stepped inside that wing, it didn't feel as intense. But I kept being drawn back there again and again, like something about that space was pulling me in. Not threatening, but deliberate, almost invitingly. And that's the part I still struggle to fully explain. Because despite how heavy Parramatta Jail feels, despite the headaches I get afterwards or during, the tension I feel, the unease I feel, there's always something strangely familiar about it. Not comforting exactly, but familiar. Every time I go back, there's still this strange sense of recognition, like stepping into a place that already knows me, or maybe a place I somehow understand emotionally, even when I don't fully want to. And maybe that feeling comes from repeated exposure. Maybe after enough investigations, certain environments stop feeling foreign. Maybe the atmosphere becomes familiar simply because you've spent so much time inside it. And sometimes it feels deeper than that familiarity, not in a dramatic way, not like I believe I belong there in some supernatural sense, but more like certain places resonate with something emotionally or intuitively inside me. And we don't always understand why. And honestly, I don't think that contradiction is part of what makes places like Parramatta Jail so difficult to explain, because it can feel oppressive and magnetic at the same time, unsettling, yet strangely difficult to leave behind. There's also a particular cell in that wing, one that's usually locked and not part of the standard tour, but across multiple visits, we began getting consistent responses from something inside. We ended up calling him Andrew, not because we know who or what he is, but because whatever or whoever we were communicating with was consistent and responsive, almost aware of us. The same tone, the same personality, a playful, slightly cheeky, even flirtatious at one point, and repeatedly would tell my husband to go away and leave me in that cell alone. And as strange as that sounds, it didn't feel random. It felt familiar, like not everything there feels aggressive. In fact, some of it feels completely different. And that contrast is what makes the jail even more unsettling. Wing 1 has housed women and children, and the energy there shifts. It's not heavy in the same way. It's not aggressive, but it isn't peaceful either. It feels curious. It feels inquisitive, like something is trying to understand you rather than push you away. During one vigil, I saw a shadow figure the size of a child dart behind the people sitting opposite me. It was quick but distinct. And later that night, through a spirit box, we heard a child's voice calling out Mummy. At one point, our music box began activating repeatedly. Anthony stood nearby and invited the child to touch his hand. And he said he could feel it, like his hand was being held, not brushed, not imagined, held. He felt that energetic tingle. And earlier that same night, a friend had felt her bag being tugged at, like something was trying to get her attention. At the time, we'd questioned it, but afterward, it felt connected. And this wasn't just during group settings. At one point, Anthony did a lone walkthrough, completely by himself, no one nearby, no talking, no movement, just silence, him inside one wing alone, which is the same wing connected to those earlier experiences. And in that silence, he heard something. It was clear enough that there was no mistaking it. The sound of a woman singing. Not loud, not dramatic, but distinct, and like it was coming from within the wing itself. I might insert that audio into this clip here.
I hear like someone singing. Who's making that noise? Whose voice can I hear?
So what do you think? And when you place that into a space that once housed women and children, it adds another layer. Not aggressive and not threatening, but undeniably present. And it wasn't just us. In Wing 5, an area that once housed young adults and children, something else happened. On separate levels of the same wing at the same time, two different devices gave the same name, Joshua, to different people. Moments later, one of our friends, after doing a lone vigil in that same wing, described connecting with what she felt was a young presence. Lonely, looking for attention. And when you consider who was once held there, it changes how you interpret that moment, because it stops feeling random and starts feeling like something that belongs there. So when people walk into places like this and feel something heavy, something aggressive, something that makes them uneasy, they often jump to one conclusion, that it's something dark, perhaps demonic. But what if that label isn't about what's actually there, but how we're experiencing it. Because places like this weren't just filled with people, they were filled with emotion, and not just any emotion. We're talking anger, violence, instability, fear, the kind of emotional state someone lived in day after day. So if that energy leaves an imprint, what happens when the person it came from was already aggressive, already volatile, already unpredictable? Does that just disappear, or does it linger in the same way? And if it does linger, then what we're feeling might not be something inhuman at all. It might be a reflection of who that person was at their worst. And then there's something else to consider. Because when people walk into a place like this expecting to feel something dark, and they do, that reaction doesn't just stop with them. It builds. Fear feeds perception. Perception reinforces experience. And over time, that energy doesn't just sit there. It layers. It intensifies. It becomes something that feels bigger than the sum of what created it. So what we end up experiencing might feel like something more, something darker, something we struggle to explain. And the easiest way to understand it is to call it something it may not actually be. Because every time I've entered that jail, I've had a headache without fail, and others have felt it too. Pressure, unease, emotional shifts that don't quite feel like their own, not overwhelming, but persistent enough that you take notice. And sometimes it doesn't end when you leave. There's what people often call a paranormal hangover, for those who aren't aware of that. That lingering sense that something hasn't quite let go. For us, it showed up subtly. Shadow figures in the corner of your eye. Moments you second guess. The music box at home was activating when pointed towards something where our equipment was kept. Not constant, not aggressive, but just enough to make you wonder, did everything really stay behind? Maybe the real question isn't what is still there, but what happens when energy like that isn't just left behind, but felt, feared, and unknowingly fed over time? If you've ever experienced Parramatta Jail for yourself, you'll know it doesn't feel like just another haunted place. It feels layered, complex, and maybe misunderstood. If you've ever had your own experiences there, I would love to hear them. And if you're brave enough to visit, go in with awareness. Because sometimes it's not just about what's there, it's what we bring into it and what we take away. Before we finish tonight, there's one question that kept coming back to me while putting this episode together. If places like Parramatta Jail can feel so intense, so immediate, so undeniably present, why is it that sometimes I can feel something there, but I can't communicate with it? Why can some experiences feel crystal clear, while others leave nothing but questions? Because feeling a presence and receiving a message aren't always the same thing. The next episode, that's exactly what we're exploring. What mediumship actually feels like. Why connection isn't always consistent. And why sometimes the strongest experiences come without a single word being spoken. Until then, stay curious, not too curious. Bye.